I canceled my girlfriend's stay at a luxury resort that I paid for after she used my tickets to go with her friends instead of me. I have a girlfriend, Ina, with whom I've been for about 4 years. Recently, I planned a romantic trip to an amazing resort to celebrate our anniversary, which also falls on her birthday. I paid for everything: plane tickets, accommodation, and even some special activities at the location. This year, I was planning to propose to her. I was super excited and told enough about the details of the trip a few weeks in advance, and she seemed very enthusiastic as well. However, a few days before the trip, she started acting strangely and a bit distant. I asked if everything was okay, and she assured me it was. On the day we were supposed to travel, I asked if she preferred to meet at her place if I should pick her up, if she preferred to meet at the airport or something else, but I got no response. I tried calling her multiple times, but nothing. I even asked her relatives if she had mentioned anything to them, but again, nothing. I was anxious, wondering what had happened, and even considered going to the police to report a disappearance. Imagine my surprise when a few hours later I saw photos on social media of Anna at the resort, but she wasn't alone. She was with a friend and 4 guys I didn't know. I was in shock. I called her immediately, but she didn't answer. I sent messages asking what was going on, and she only replied at the end of the day saying she was sorry, but needed this time with her friends to de-stress and that we could reschedule our trip. I asked her what the hell she was talking about and who those guys in the photos were. She said I was overreacting and that they were just friends she met at the resort. The situation was already absurd. But now, not only had she tricked me and gone to the resort I paid for, but she was also celebrating with guys I didn't know in the room I paid for doing. Who knows what? I asked her why she went without me. She said honestly I wasn't fun. According to her, she loved me as a person and really liked me. But for her birthday in such a special place, she wanted to do whatever she wanted and be free. And if I were there, I would ruin that. I told her that. Of course I wouldn't do that. I literally paid for her tickets so we could go there and do all sorts of things together. I took the only vacation I have in the year for this, spent money I saved for months and offered her a special experience, and she used it as an opportunity for a trip with her friends. She then said she couldn't stand my nagging throughout the trip, so she would block me and only unblock me when the stay was over, and that I shouldn't try to contact her until then, justifiably. I was furious. I had spent a fortune and planned everything thinking of the two of us, and she used it as an opportunity for a trip with her friends. Without thinking twice, I canceled the rest of the stay at the resort and all the activities I had booked. Unfortunately, I lost a small part of the money since she had already stayed there for the day, but I managed to recover most of it. When she found out, she called me furious, saying I was petty and that I ruined her and her friend's vacation, that I was a monster and that she didn't want anything to do with me anymore. However, when she discovered that I had also canceled the plane tickets and she couldn't return home, her tone changed completely. She started messaging me again, apologizing and saying she might have overreacted and shouldn't have done what she did. She began asking me to restore the tickets and wait for her to come home so we could talk. I said no, I didn't want to annoy her with my nagging. Then I blocked her. I feel betrayed and very confused about how to deal with this. From what I know, she is still there and will ask her parents for money to buy another ticket, but I don't know if they will give it to her, as I told them what happened, and they are also upset with her. Update 1. When I thought the storm had passed, it swung back around with even more force. So, this morning, just as I was finally feeling a bit more grounded and considering getting back into my normal routine, there was a knock. Not just a light tap, but a solid, determined knock. It was Inna. Yes, Inna, standing right there at my doorstep looking like a mix of nervous and hopeful, maybe even a bit desperate. I could barely process my emotions at seeing her there. Surprise, anger, curiosity, a weird sense of déjà vu. It was all swirling inside me. Despite everything, I opened the door. I mean, you have to, right? You have to at least find out why. Inna was tearful, and she wasted no time launching into this heartfelt apology. She looked pretty rough, which part of me felt like she deserved. She talked about how she realized she had messed up big time, how she'd taken everything we had for granted, and how being stranded without a way back was a wake-up call. She went on about the friends who had quickly distanced themselves once the luxury dried up, how they blamed her for ruining what was supposed to be their epic getaway. Her parents, she said, were disappointed beyond words, and the whole experience made her reevaluate what was important in her life. And according to her, that was me, our relationship. Listening to Inna spill her guts, seeing her so vulnerable, I won't lie, it stirred up a lot of old feelings. There was a part of me that just wanted to put it all behind us, to forgive and forget. But there was also this louder voice reminding me of the betrayal, the disappointment, and the sheer audacity of her actions. She suggested couples therapy, promised transparency, swore it was a one-time mistake that would never happen again. She was pulling all the stops, and it was a lot to take in. After Inna left, I closed the door and just stood there for what felt like ages. My house suddenly felt a lot smaller, or maybe it was just the weight of everything making it feel cramped. The idea of trying to patch things up was tempting. There's comfort in the familiar, in going back to what you know. But could I really just overlook what had happened? I spent the rest of the day in a fog, thinking about everything. I flipped between anger, sadness, and this guilty feeling of empathy for her situation. I talked to a couple of close friends, laid it all out, and they were as shocked as I was, but offered some solid advice. They reminded me of the need to protect my own heart and mental health above all. Moving forward, maybe? As of now, I haven't made any decisions. Inna's staying at her parents' place, trying to give me space to think, which I appreciate, but the ball's in my court now. I'm considering all options. Maybe a meeting in a neutral place to talk things through could be a start, or perhaps it's best to just move on, turn the page for good. Update 2. After I last wrote, my emotions were all over the place, but the worst part was the sinking feeling of betrayal that just wouldn't let up. Inna and I had met up, hoping maybe there was a way to salvage something, maybe some closure or understanding from the whole mess. Honestly, part of me was clinging to the memories of better days, hoping against all odds that there was some misunderstanding. But what unfolded at that cafe tore down any remaining hopes. Inna looked like she was carrying the weight of the world as we sat down, her usual vibrant self replaced by this nervous, fidgety version that was hard to reconcile with the person I thought I knew. The cafe around us buzzed with life, people laughing and chatting over coffee, oblivious to the storm brewing at our small table. When she finally spoke, it was like a dam breaking. She didn't just admit to the escapade at the resort, she confessed to multiple instances of unfaithfulness throughout our relationship. Each confession was a hammer blow to the remnants of trust I had clung to. It wasn't just about her being with someone else, it was the repeated betrayal, the ongoing deceit. Walking out of that cafe, I felt numb. The world seemed to move in slow motion as I wandered through the streets, each step heavier than the last. I must have walked for miles, trying to clear my head, to understand how and why everything had gone so wrong. The images of our past, the plans we had made, all seemed tainted now, colored by the lies that had woven their way through our history. Reaching out to a therapist was my lifeline. Those sessions in a quiet, neutral space were where I began to dissect the grief and betrayal, to face the pain head-on rather than letting it consume me from the inside. It was raw, often painful work, but necessary. My friends and family were incredible too, offering not just sympathy, but strength. Their support was a reminder that despite everything, I wasn't alone. The more I talked it out, the more I came to realize that this wasn't just about Inna's infidelity. It was about what I tolerated, what I expected from a relationship, and how I had ignored signs because I was comfortable, because it was easier than facing potential conflicts. This realization was sobering. It forced me to look not just at her actions, but at my own, at the dynamic we had allowed to develop between us. As for moving forward, it's one day at a time. Some days are better, others are a struggle when memories surface out of the blue, triggering a fresh wave of hurt. But each day adds a bit more distance from the pain, a bit more clarity. I've taken up old hobbies that I had set aside: photography, hiking, being out in nature, capturing moments of fleeting beauty has been therapeutic. It's a way to reclaim parts of myself that got lost in the relationship. The future is still a big question mark. Right now, it's about healing, about building a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. It's about learning to trust again, not just in others, but in my own judgment, in my ability to see things clearly and make choices that are good for me. To those who've been there. To everyone reading this, whether you've shared words of support, advice, or simply followed along, thank you. It's strange how sharing the most painful parts of our lives with strangers can sometimes be the most comforting, how it can make us feel seen and understood in ways we didn't expect. Your kindness has been a beacon during some very dark days. I'll keep updating as I navigate this journey, sharing the ups and downs, the setbacks, and the steps forward. Life throws us curveballs, but it's also full of rebounds, of new paths that open up just when we think all doors have closed. Here's to discovering what's next, to new beginnings, and to the resilience we all carry within us. Let's see what life has in store beyond the storm. Update 3. After I discovered that Tom, the guy Inna cheated with, was married, I was torn about what to do. It's one thing to handle your own relationship falling apart, but it's another to hold the potential grenade that could blow up someone else's life. I wrestled with this dilemma, wondering whether ignorance was bliss or if the truth was a necessary pain. I talked it through with my therapist, who helped me explore the ethical side of things. It was clear that if roles were reversed, I would want to know. So, after much thought and a fair share of anxiety, I decided to reach out to Tom's wife. Finding her contact wasn't easy. I had to discreetly ask around, and it felt a bit like I was crossing lines. But ultimately, I thought about the bigger picture and pushed forward. The meeting with Tom's wife was as nerve-wracking as you'd expect. We met at a quiet corner of a local cafe, a place where we could talk without too much interruption. Initially, there was a chill in the air, a mix of her suspicion and my anxiety. When I finally laid everything out, the look of shock on her face was something I won't easily forget. It was a mirror of my own when I first found out about Ina. She listened, mostly quiet, with a storm brewing in her eyes. I shared the details, the timeline, and even showed her some messages as proof. Because let's face it, this kind of news isn't easily digested without some solid evidence. The conversation was tough, filled with pauses heavy enough to drown in. By the end, she was visibly shaken, but there was also a resolve there, a steely sort of strength that appeared as she started to process the reality of her situation. After our meeting, the fallout was immediate and intense. Tom's wife confronted him, and from what she later told me, it was both explosive and revelatory. They were thrust into their own whirlwind of decision-making and emotional upheaval. She thanked me for coming forward, saying that while it was devastating, it was better to confront the harsh truth than to live in deceit. For me, telling her had unexpected consequences on my own healing process. There was a sense of closure, a feeling of doing the right thing, however hard it was. It didn't make the betrayal hurt any less, but it gave me a sense of agency, of taking action rather than being a passive victim in the narrative of my own life. As for my own path forward, it's still being paved one day at a time. The world didn't stop turning, and life didn't pause to let me catch up. I had to keep moving. I found solace in returning to my hobbies, particularly photography. There's something about capturing life through a lens that helps put things in perspective. It's like you're framing the world, focusing on what you choose to see, and blurring out the rest. I've also leaned heavily on my circle of friends and family, whose support has been unwavering and invaluable. Their perspectives, advice, and sometimes just their presence have helped me navigate through the darker moments. The road ahead is uncertain. There are good days and bad ones. Sometimes the betrayal feels like a shadow that trails just behind me, and other days, it's a distant memory. I'm learning to accept that healing isn't linear, and that's okay. Thank you to everyone who's been following this saga. Your words, your shared stories of similar experiences, and your encouragement have been more helpful than I can express. I'll continue to share updates as I navigate through this. Here's to moving forward, to healing, and to finding peace in the chaos of life. Here's to new beginnings, however they may come. Update 4. After sharing the initial shock and hurt with Sarah, Tom's wife, our casual conversations slowly morphed into regular check-ins. These weren't just your run-of-the-mill venting sessions. They started to take on a life of their own, turning into brainstorming meetups about how we could both get some form of justice, or as it slipped into, revenge. What started almost as a dark joke between two scorned partners began to take a more serious and, frankly, a bit of a sinister tone. Sarah was the mastermind behind the initial idea of hitting Tom where it would hurt the most, his wallet. As she outlined her plan to quit her job to spike the alimony she'd potentially receive, I could see the fire in her eyes. She was out for blood. Part of me was drawn into that energy. It felt like finally doing something proactive about the mess we were both thrown into. But there was also this nagging feeling in the back of my mind about whether this was really the right move. She laid out the entire strategy during one of our lengthy chats at a local diner that's become our go-to for these clandestine meetings. The more she talked about it, the more detailed and calculated it all became. She had thought of everything, the timing, the potential legal hurdles, and even the social fallout she might face. It was like watching a general map out a battle plan. As these plans crystallized, I found myself being pulled deeper into the scheming. Initially, I was just a sounding board, offering a bit of advice here and there, mostly trying to inject some caution into the mix. But as time went on, I became more involved, helping to think through potential outcomes, discussing legal angles, and even playing devil's advocate to ensure Sarah had thought through all the angles. This involvement made me start to question my own motivations. Was I really helping Sarah, or was I using this plan as a way to channel my own anger and hurt? Was I looking for vicarious satisfaction in Tom's downfall because I hadn't fully dealt with my own feelings about Ina's betrayal? As the plan moved forward, my doubts grew. There's something about plotting revenge that starts to eat at you, making you question your own moral compass. I began to reflect on the potential consequences, not just for Tom, but for Sarah, myself, and even innocent bystanders like family members and friends who might be caught in the crossfire. I found myself lying awake at night wrestling with the ethics of our actions. Was it just to seek retribution in this way? Could this spiral out of control and lead to more hurt? What was the endgame here? Justice or just plain revenge? Realizing that I might be in over my head, I sought more professional advice. I talked extensively with my therapist about the situation, unpacking not just the plan with Sarah but my entire journey since discovering Ina's betrayal. These sessions were eye-opening, helping me to see how my desire for justice might actually be clouding my judgment. I also consulted a legal friend informally, trying to get a sense of the legal ramifications of what we were considering. The advice was sobering. Messing with someone's life like this could have serious legal consequences and could backfire in ways we hadn't considered. Now, here I am, at a crossroads, trying to decide how, or if, I should continue down this path with Sarah. The plan is in motion, but not irreversible. I find myself torn between supporting a friend in her quest for what she sees as justice and stepping back from a situation that might not be as black and white as it seems. Reflecting on the journey to everyone who's been reading these updates, your support and insights have been invaluable. This journey has taken turns I never expected, pushing me to question not just the actions of those who hurt me, but also my own responses and choices. As I navigate these murky waters, I'm reminded of the complexity of human emotions and relationships, and the often blurry line between right and wrong. I'll keep you posted on where this path leads, hopefully to a resolution that brings peace rather than more turmoil. Here's to finding clarity in the chaos and making choices we can live with. Update 5. Amidst all the chaos and the drama of the past months, something unexpected happened. I met someone new. Let's call her Ellie. So, Ellie and I met under pretty whimsical circumstances at a local bookstore. You know, one of those movie-like moments where you both reach for the same book and your hands touch. It's funny how life throws you these little moments of serendipity right when you least expect them. We ended up grabbing coffee together right then and there, chatting over our favorite authors and genres, and finding that our connection wasn't just about books. These past few weeks with Ellie have been a breath of fresh air. After everything that went down with Ina, diving back into the dating world felt daunting. But Ellie's presence has been soothing, like finding calm waters after a stormy sea. We've taken things slow, really getting to know each other, sharing bits and pieces of our lives, our dreams, our past heartaches. She's been incredibly understanding about all the drama that's unfolded with Ina, which has made opening up to her easier than I expected. On the flip side, there's the ongoing saga with Ina. Her life seems to have taken a nosedive since everything blew up. Her parents deciding to kick her out was a shock to everyone. They've always been supportive of her, almost to a fault, some might say. But I guess everyone has their breaking point. They felt that Ina needed a serious wake-up call, and apparently this was it. From what I've heard through mutual friends, she's been struggling to adjust to her new reality. Financially, she's in hot water, having been cut off from the comfort and security of her parents' support. Emotionally, it sounds like she's a mess, trying to grapple with the consequences of her actions. While there's a part of me that feels vindicated seeing her finally face some repercussions, there's also this weird undercurrent of sympathy. It's hard to watch someone you once loved fall apart no matter what they did. Navigating these mixed emotions hasn't been easy. I find myself reflecting a lot these days, on how far I've come, on the lessons learned, and on how I can use these experiences to grow. It's been a process of acknowledging the hurt and betrayal, while also trying not to become bitter. Therapy has been a godsend through all of this. It's given me a space to unpack all these complex feelings without judgment. It's taught me a lot about empathy and forgiveness, not just forgiving others, but forgiving myself too. It's easy to beat yourself up, to wonder how you didn't see the signs or what you could have done differently. But I'm learning to let go of those thoughts, to accept that sometimes things just happen the way they do, without it necessarily being anyone's fault. Looking forward, I'm excited to see where things go with Ellie. We're planning a small trip together next month. A little getaway to a cabin by the lake where we can just relax, enjoy each other's company, and build on this new relationship. It's nice to have something to look forward to. A reminder that there's still joy to be found after heartache. And as for the blog and sharing this journey with all of you, your support has been incredible. Reading your comments and advice not only helps me feel less alone, but often gives me new insights into my own feelings and situations. It's comforting to know that no matter what life throws at me, there's a community here that understands and supports me. So here's to moving forward, to new chapters and new relationships. Here's to learning from the past and using it to create a better future. I'll keep updating as things progress, sharing the highs and hopefully fewer lows. Thanks for being a part of my journey. Here's to finding happiness, in whatever form it may come. Cheers to life's unexpected twists and turns, and to navigating them with grace and resilience. Update 6. Ellie and I had been growing closer by the day, and our relationship felt like it was on fast forward in the best possible way. We were connecting on all levels, and life seemed to be rewarding us with pure, unadulterated happiness after a stormy period. Then, the baby news hit us like a ton of bricks, in that startling, exhilarating way that changes everything you thought you knew about your future in an instant. We found out Ellie was pregnant on a lazy Sunday morning. It was completely unplanned and unexpected. We were both in our pajamas, just enjoying a slow start to the day when she mentioned she'd been feeling off. Half jokingly, I suggested getting a pregnancy test. When she agreed, I thought we were just indulging a whim. But when that test showed a positive, our casual morning turned into one of the most memorable days of our lives. After the initial shock and excitement of the pregnancy settled a bit, I started thinking about how I wanted to make things even more official with Ellie. I knew she was the one for me, not just because of the baby, but because of how she'd been my partner through everything, offering me support and showing me what a loving, stable relationship could look like. I wanted the proposal to be special, but also intimate, something that would reflect the simplicity and depth of our bond. So I planned a quiet evening at home. I cooked her favorite meal, spaghetti carbonara, set up candles all around our living room, and put on the playlist that had all our favorite songs. It was just us, in our little bubble, and it felt perfect. When I proposed, Ellie's reaction was everything I had hoped for and more. She was genuinely surprised, and her immediate tears and laughter were a mix that perfectly encapsulated the moment. Joyful, emotional, real. It felt like we were the only two people in the world at that moment. And when she said yes, it was the happiest I had felt in a long time. This whole journey, from the depths of despair with Inna to finding something so real with Ellie, has been surreal. If you had told me a year ago that this is where I'd be today, I wouldn't have believed it. It's funny how life works out sometimes. It throws you these curveballs, and somehow they lead you exactly where you're meant to be. Meeting Ellie, and now expecting a child with her, has taught me so much about the unpredictability of life and the resilience of the human spirit. It's shown me that no matter how broken things seem, there's always a path forward, a path that can lead to unexpected, incredible places. Now, as Ellie and I prepare for our wedding and the arrival of our baby, I'm filled with a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. We're diving into all things wedding planning and baby prep. It's a lot, but it's the kind of busy I've come to cherish because it's building towards the life I've always hoped for. We're looking at venues for a small wedding, something outdoors, maybe in a garden or by the beach. We want it to be a celebration of love, not just our love, but the love of all our friends and family who've supported us along the way. As for the baby, our weekends are now filled with browsing baby stores, reading parenting books, and daydreaming about the future. To everyone reading this, your support has been a cornerstone through my ups and downs. Sharing this journey with you has been incredibly therapeutic and rewarding. The comments, the shared stories, and even just knowing you're out there reading this means more than I can express. Here's to the future, a future filled with love, laughter, and the little footsteps of our newest addition. I can't wait to share more updates as we embark on this incredible adventure. Life is full of surprises, and I'm so grateful for where this one has led me. Cheers to new beginnings and the beautiful unpredictability of life. 2 days before I was due to give birth, my husband's ex sent him a text about some emergency. He told me to just deal with it and left me alone for a week. When he finally returned, he was shocked to find his mom at our house with these papers. Oh boy. When I first met Andy, everything seemed like it was falling into place. We met at work, where he was always the guy people looked up to, someone who got along with everyone. I had just switched departments, and we ended up working on the same project. We hit it off pretty quickly. I won't lie, at first I thought it was just a harmless work crush. You know how it is when you spend a lot of time with someone and start seeing them in a different light. But with Andy, it turned into something more serious pretty fast. We started dating about 3 months after we first started working together. At that point, I didn't know much about his past relationships. And honestly, I didn't think much about it. We were both in our early 30s, and everyone has some sort of history by then, right? I was more focused on how well we clicked. He was charming, attentive, and we just seemed to get each other. It felt easy and natural, which was a big deal for me because I've had my fair share of complicated relationships. We would go on these little weekend trips, explore new restaurants in the city, and just enjoy each other's company. It was fun, and I felt like we were really building something solid. We talked about our lives, our plans, and eventually, our pasts. I told him about my ex, who I had dated for 4 years, 3 years in college and 1 year after that. We broke up because we were heading in different directions in life, and honestly, it was a mutual thing. We didn't stay in touch, and I didn't have any lingering feelings. Andy, on the other hand, had a different story. He told me about his ex, Megan, who was his high school sweetheart. They had been together for a long time, since they were 16, all through college, and even a bit afterward. When he told me they had broken up because she wanted to take a job in Australia and he didn't want a long-distance relationship, it seemed pretty straightforward. He mentioned they tried to make it work for a few months, but eventually they both agreed it was best to move on. I remember thinking it was a mature decision and I respected him for that. I didn't feel threatened by her at all. I mean, it had been 5 years since they broke up when we met, and it sounded like they had both moved on. He even told me they were still friends and part of the same circle. I thought it was great that they could remain friends after a breakup. It showed that they were both mature enough to handle their emotions, which is something I valued in a partner. Fast forward to 9 months into our relationship, and Andy decided it was time for me to meet his friends. I was excited but also a bit nervous because meeting your partner's friends is always a big step. It means you're getting integrated into their life in a more significant way. Plus, I wanted to make a good impression because, let's face it, how your partner's friends see you can sometimes impact your relationship. We were all set to go to this New Year's Eve dinner where everyone from his friend group would be there, including Megan. I wasn't expecting that, but I figured it wouldn't be a big deal. Andy had told me so much about her, all good things, and I had no reason to feel insecure. But when we got to the restaurant and I finally met Megan, I immediately noticed something was off. From the moment we shook hands, her vibe with me was totally different from what Andy had described. He'd made her out to be this warm, easygoing person, but I didn't get that from her at all. Instead, she had this weird energy that made me uncomfortable, like she was sizing me up the entire time. I brushed it off at first because I figured it was just me being nervous. But then she started making these snide remarks that were disguised as jokes. You know the type, those comments that seem harmless on the surface, but there's an edge to them that makes you feel like you're being attacked. For example, she made a comment about how I looked different in person than in pictures. It caught me off guard and I wasn't sure how to react, so I just kind of laughed it off. Everyone else laughed too, so I thought maybe I was overthinking it. But then she followed it up with, I didn't think you'd be Andy's type. He usually goes for tall blondes. Now, I'm not tall, and I'm definitely not blonde, so that stung a bit. But again, I let it slide because I didn't want to cause a scene. I was meeting his friends for the first time, and I didn't want to be that person who made a big deal out of nothing. But inside, I was starting to feel really uncomfortable. It was like she was trying to put me in my place, reminding me that she had been there first. The rest of the night didn't get any better. At one point, Megan raised a toast to Andy finally moving on, which I thought was a nice gesture until she added, if it weren't for me deciding to move to Australia, none of us would be here tonight. It was awkward. Nobody laughed, but she started laughing herself, and everyone else awkwardly joined in. I could see Andy was uncomfortable too, but he didn't say anything. He just gave me a look that said, let's just get through this. After that New Year's Eve dinner, I couldn't shake off the way Megan had treated me. It was like this nagging feeling that just wouldn't go away. I kept replaying her comments in my head, wondering if I was being too sensitive or if she really was trying to get under my skin. I mean, it wasn't just 1 or 2 comments. She had been jabbing at me the entire night, and what bothered me the most was that everyone else seemed to just laugh it off like it was normal behavior for her. But to me, it didn't feel right. For the next few days, I tried to push it out of my mind and just focus on work and getting back to our routine. But every time I thought about that night, I got this sinking feeling in my stomach. It was like a dark cloud hanging over me, and I couldn't ignore it. Andy and I didn't really talk about it much after that night. He apologized for Megan's behavior and assured me he'd take care of it, but we didn't go into detail. I think part of me was afraid to bring it up again because I didn't want to seem like I was overreacting or insecure. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had to say something. I couldn't just let it slide. A week after that dinner, I finally decided to confront Andy about it. We were sitting on the couch, watching some random show on TV, but I wasn't paying attention at all. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how to bring it up without sounding accusatory. Finally, I just paused the show and turned to him. Andy, can we talk about something? I asked, trying to keep my tone calm and neutral. He looked at me, a bit surprised, but nodded. Sure, what's on your mind? He replied, turning his full attention to me. I took a deep breath. It's about Megan, I said, watching his reaction closely. I could see his expression change slightly, like he knew where this conversation was headed. What about her? He asked, his voice careful. I've been thinking a lot about that dinner, and honestly, I'm really uncomfortable with how she treated me, I started, trying to keep my voice steady. She made a lot of comments that felt really passive-aggressive, and it just felt like she was trying to undermine me in front of your friends. Andy sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. I get where you're coming from, and I'm sorry that you felt that way. I really didn't expect her to act like that, he said, looking a bit uneasy. I talked to her afterward, and she said she was just joking around. She didn't mean anything by it. That response didn't sit well with me. Andy, I get that she might think it was just a joke, but it didn't feel like that to me. It felt like she was deliberately trying to make me feel small, I said, my frustration starting to show. He frowned. I'm not defending her, but I've known Megan for a long time, and that's just how she is. She has a weird sense of humor, but she doesn't mean any harm. She's always been like that with everyone. That just made me more upset. But I'm not everyone, Andy. I'm your wife. I should be able to feel comfortable around your friends, and I didn't feel comfortable at all that night, I said, my voice getting a bit sharper. And what bothers me even more is that nobody else seemed to think it was a big deal. It was like everyone was in on some inside joke that I wasn't a part of. Andy looked down, clearly uncomfortable with the direction this conversation was taking. I'm sorry you felt that way, really. I didn't want you to feel excluded or disrespected, he said. I'll talk to Megan again and make sure she understands that she crossed a line. I could feel my frustration bubbling up even more. Andy, it's not just about talking to her, it's about setting boundaries. I don't want to be in a situation where I have to see her again and deal with that kind of behavior. I need to know that you're on my side and that you're willing to put our relationship first, I said, my voice firm. He looked at me, his expression serious. I am on your side, and I do put our relationship first. But Megan is a part of my life. She's been my friend for years. I can't just cut her out, he said, his tone a bit defensive. That response hit me hard. I felt this sharp sting of betrayal, like I wasn't his priority. So you're saying that her feelings matter more than mine? I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check. No, that's not what I'm saying at all, he replied quickly. I just mean that it's complicated. I can't just end a friendship that's been there for so long. But I promise I'll talk to her and make sure she doesn't act like that again. I shook my head, feeling more hurt than I wanted to admit. I don't think you get it, Andy. It's not just about how she acts in the future. It's about how she acted that night and how it made me feel. I need to know that you're willing to stand up for me, even if it means putting some distance between you and Megan. He sighed heavily, clearly conflicted. I do stand up for you. I told her that what she said was out of line. But I can't just push her out of my life completely. She's been there for me through a lot. That was like a punch to the gut. So what am I supposed to do? Just accept that she's going to be a part of our lives even though she clearly doesn't respect me? I asked, my voice cracking a bit. Andy looked at me, his expression pained. I don't want you to feel like you have to compete with her. That's not what this is about. You're my wife, and you come first. I don't know how to balance it all, he admitted. I could feel tears starting to well up, but I blinked them back. Andy, I'm not asking you to balance anything. I'm asking you to choose. I can't keep feeling like I'm second place in my own marriage, I said quietly. He looked at me for a long moment, his face conflicted. Finally, he nodded. Okay, I'll cut ties with Megan. I don't want to lose you over this, he said, his voice soft. Hearing those words should have made me feel relieved, but instead, I just felt this overwhelming sadness. I didn't want to be the reason he lost a friend, but at the same time, I couldn't keep living with this constant feeling of insecurity and doubt. I'm sorry it has to be like this, but I can't keep feeling like I'm competing with your past, I said, my voice trembling. Andy reached out and took my hand, squeezing it gently. I understand. I'll take care of it, he said, his tone serious. I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me was relieved that he was willing to put our relationship first, but another part of me was worried about what this would mean for us moving forward. Would Andy resent me for making him cut ties with someone who had been a big part of his life? Would Megan try to cause more problems for us? I didn't know the answers to those questions, but at that moment, all I could do was trust that Andy would do what he said he would. We didn't talk much more that night. We just sat there, holding hands, both of us lost in our own thoughts. I knew that things wouldn't be the same after this conversation, but I hoped that we could move past it and come out stronger on the other side. For now, I just wanted to focus on us and on the future we were building together. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of the challenges we would face. After the conversation with Andy about Megan, things seemed to settle down. I won't say everything was perfect, but it felt like we were finally on the same page. He reassured me that he had talked to Megan and made it clear that her behavior was unacceptable. He even told me that he'd decided to distance himself from her for the sake of our relationship. That gave me some peace of mind, and I started to feel like we were moving forward. For the next few months, life went on as usual. We both got busy with work, and I was more focused on the pregnancy than anything else. Being pregnant for the first time brought a whole mix of emotions: excitement, anxiety, and a lot of planning. Andy was pretty supportive throughout the pregnancy, coming with me to all the doctor's appointments and helping me prepare for the baby. We spent our weekends putting together the nursery, picking out baby clothes, and talking about what life would be like once our daughter arrived. It felt like we were finally getting back to normal. Megan wasn't mentioned again, and I took that as a sign that Andy had followed through on his promise. I started to relax and let myself enjoy this time. It was nice to focus on the future we were building together, just the two of us getting ready to welcome our baby into the world. But even with things going well, I couldn't help but have this lingering feeling in the back of my mind. I tried to ignore it, telling myself that I was just being paranoid. Andy had done what I asked. He'd set boundaries with Megan, and our relationship was stronger for it. I wanted to believe that everything was going to be okay, but there was still this tiny voice in my head that kept whispering, "What if?" As my due date got closer, I found myself getting more and more anxious. I think it's normal for any first-time mom to feel that way. There's so much uncertainty, so many things that could go wrong, and you just want everything to be perfect for your baby. Andy tried to reassure me, telling me that everything would be fine and that we were ready for this. He even joked about how he'd been reading all the dad books and was fully prepared for diaper duty. I appreciated his efforts to keep things light, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I chalked it up to hormones and the stress of the pregnancy, telling myself that I was just overthinking things. But deep down, I knew that my worries weren't just about the baby, they were about Andy too. We had our last big ultrasound about 3 weeks before my due date. Seeing our daughter on the screen, so close to being born, made everything feel so real. Andy was there, holding my hand, and I could see the excitement in his eyes. It was a special moment for both of us, and for a little while, all my doubts and worries melted away. I let myself believe that everything was going to be okay, that we were going to be okay. In those final weeks leading up to my due date, Andy was more attentive than ever. He made sure I was comfortable, helped out around the house, and even started cooking more since I was getting too tired to do much of anything. It was like he was trying to make up for the rough patch we'd gone through with Megan. I appreciated it, and it made me feel like we were really in this together. But then, about a week before my due date, Andy started acting a little strange. He seemed distracted, like something was on his mind, but he wouldn't talk about it. I noticed that he was spending more time on his phone, but when I asked him about it, he brushed it off, saying it was just work stuff. I didn't want to push, so I let it go, but that uneasy feeling started to creep back in. I remember one night, we were sitting on the couch, and I could see that Andy was texting someone. He was being kind of secretive about it, not letting me see who it was. I asked him if everything was okay, and he just gave me this vague answer, saying that he was dealing with some work issues and didn't want to stress me out with it. I wanted to believe him, but there was this nagging feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. Then, just 2 days before my due date, Andy dropped a bombshell on me. He told me that he had to leave for a couple of days because an old friend was in trouble and needed his help. I was completely caught off guard. I couldn't understand why he would leave me when I was so close to giving birth. I asked him who this friend was, and that's when he told me. It was Megan. Hearing her name again after all these months felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Megan? The same Megan he had promised to distance himself from? The same Megan who had treated me like crap that night at dinner? I was stunned, and all I could think was, why now? I tried to keep my cool, but I was hurt and angry. I asked him why he felt the need to go to her, especially now, when I needed him the most. He told me that Megan had been diagnosed with brain cancer and that she had no one else to turn to. She was in Australia alone and had reached out to him in desperation. He said that she needed him to be there for her, at least for a little while, to help her process everything. I was speechless. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what he was telling me. On one hand, I could understand why he felt the need to help her. If she was really sick, I could see why he might want to be there for her. But on the other hand, I was furious. How could he leave me, his pregnant wife, to go take care of his ex-girlfriend? It didn't make any sense to me. I asked him why he didn't tell me sooner, why he kept this from me until the last minute. He said that he didn't want to stress me out, especially so close to the due date. He thought that he would be back in time and that everything would be fine. He even tried to reassure me, saying that due dates aren't always accurate and that I might not go into labor for another week. That was the last straw for me. I couldn't believe that he was willing to gamble with our daughter's birth just to be there for Megan. I told him that he was being selfish, that he was putting her needs above mine and our baby's. I begged him to stay, to wait until after the baby was born, but he wouldn't budge. He was determined to go. In that moment, everything I thought I knew about our relationship came crashing down. The trust I had worked so hard to rebuild after the incident with Megan was shattered. I realized that no matter what I did or said, Megan would always have a hold on Andy. She was his past, but she was also very much a part of his present. And now, she was threatening to destroy our future. Andy left that night, and as I watched him walk out the door, I felt this overwhelming sense of betrayal. I was on the verge of giving birth to our child, and the person who was supposed to be my rock had just walked out on me. I felt alone, abandoned, and more scared than I'd ever been in my life. The calm before the storm had ended, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. When Andy left that night, I felt like my world was crumbling. I was only 2 days away from my due date, and the person I had counted on the most had just walked out the door to be with someone else. The fact that it was Megan made it even worse. I couldn't wrap my head around how he could leave me at a time like this, especially for her. It felt like the ultimate betrayal. I spent that first night tossing and turning, barely getting any sleep. My mind wouldn't shut off. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could think about was Andy being with Megan, comforting her, holding her hand, and doing all the things he should have been doing for me. I tried to calm myself down, telling myself that he'd be back soon, that maybe this was just a temporary blip. But deep down, I knew things would never be the same. The next day was a blur of anxiety and frustration. I kept trying to call Andy, but his phone was off. I must have tried a dozen times, but every time I was met with the same automated message telling me his phone was unavailable. It felt like he had completely cut me off, and I didn't know what to do. I was scared. Scared of going into labor without him, scared of being alone, scared that he was slipping away from me. I couldn't handle it by myself, so I called my mother-in-law, Linda. She had always been kind to me, and I needed someone to talk to. As soon as she heard the distress in my voice, she came over. I was a mess, crying uncontrollably, and she did her best to comfort me. I told her everything, how Andy had left to be with Megan, how he had ignored my pleas to stay, how he hadn't even bothered to answer my calls. Linda was furious. She couldn't believe that her son would do something like this, especially so close to the birth of his child. She told me that what he was doing was unacceptable, and that I had every right to be upset. She tried calling him too, but of course, his phone was still off. That just made things worse. The more we tried to reach him, the more hopeless I felt. She stayed with me that whole day, doing her best to keep me calm. We talked a lot, mostly about the baby and what life would be like once she arrived. But there was this underlying tension, this unspoken fear that we both had, that Andy wouldn't be back in time, that he had chosen Megan over his own family. Linda was trying to stay positive, telling me that he'd come to his senses and be back before the baby was born. But I could see in her eyes that she was just as worried as I was. The worst part was not knowing what was going on. I kept imagining the worst. What if something happened to Andy while he was gone? What if he decided not to come back at all? My mind was going in a million different directions, and I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, hoping it was him, but it never was. It was like he had disappeared completely. By the time the sun set that day, I was exhausted. Emotionally, physically, mentally, every part of me was drained. I was on edge, constantly checking my phone, hoping for some sign that Andy was okay, that he was coming back, but there was nothing. Linda eventually convinced me to try and get some rest, saying that I needed to take care of myself for the baby's sake. I knew she was right, but it was hard to sleep when all I could think about was how everything had gone so wrong. That night, I finally managed to get a few hours of restless sleep, but it was more like my body shutting down from sheer exhaustion than actual rest. When I woke up the next morning, the first thing I did was check my phone. Still nothing from Andy. At that point, I felt like I was on the verge of breaking down. I was just a day away from my due date, and the man who was supposed to be by my side had vanished. I couldn't take it anymore, so I made the decision that if Andy wasn't going to be there for me, I needed to protect myself and my child. I told Linda that I wanted to file for divorce and terminate Andy's parental rights. She didn't try to talk me out of it. In fact, she supported my decision. She said that if Andy wasn't willing to be there for his family, then I had to do what was best for me and the baby. Linda immediately got in touch with her lawyer and had him draw up the paperwork. It all happened so fast. One minute I was sitting in the living room trying to hold myself together, and the next I was looking at a stack of legal documents that would end my marriage and cut Andy out of our daughter's life. It was surreal, like I was watching someone else's life play out in front of me. I knew it was a drastic step, but at that moment, it felt like the only option I had left. I couldn't risk going through this again. Couldn't risk Andy abandoning us whenever Megan decided she needed him. I had to think about my daughter and what was best for her. And right then, it seemed like the best thing I could do was to protect her from the uncertainty and instability that Andy had brought into our lives. By the afternoon, the papers were ready. All I had to do was sign them. Linda was there with me, holding my hand as I read through the documents. My hands were shaking, and I could barely focus on the words in front of me. But I knew I had to do this. I had to take control of the situation, even if it meant making one of the hardest decisions of my life. I signed the papers, feeling a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, relief, fear. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't keep living with this constant anxiety, wondering if Andy was going to be there when I needed him. I handed the papers back to Linda, who promised me that she would take care of everything. That evening, I went into labor. It was like my body had been holding on until I made the decision to protect myself and my child, and once that was done, it was ready. The contractions started slowly at first, but they quickly intensified. Linda was right there with me, helping me through it, and she called my parents, who immediately got on a flight to come and be with me. Even though I was in pain, all I could think about was Andy. I kept hoping that he would walk through the door, that he would realize what he was doing and come back to be there for the birth of our daughter. But he didn't. My parents arrived just in time to take me to the hospital, and they were by my side as I gave birth to our beautiful baby girl. It was the most bittersweet moment of my life. Holding my daughter for the first time should have been the happiest moment, but there was this emptiness, this aching void where Andy should have been. I kept telling myself that I was doing the right thing, that I was strong enough to do this on my own, but it still hurt, more than I ever thought it would. After I gave birth to our daughter, I didn't even call him my mother-in-law. My parents and I were staying at home together. My parents are supposed to go back tomorrow, though, so after that it's just going to be me and my mother-in-law. I told all of them about my decision to leave him because he hadn't even tried to get back in touch with me, even though he had promised me that he would be back before the due date. He just spent a week with Megan. Anyway, last night he came back home pretty late. I opened the door to him and he instantly hugged me when I shook him off and said I wanted nothing to do with him. Then, on hearing the doorbell ring and the door being open, my mother-in-law walked into the room with the papers and literally threw them in her son's face and said that she wanted him to leave that very instant. She said that she didn't even care where he spent the night, but she just wanted him out of the house because right now I needed some peace and quiet because I had given birth a couple of days back and he wasn't even there for it. She also told him that I had already filled out the paperwork for the divorce and she needed him to fill out the paperwork to terminate his parental rights over our daughter. He was shocked and couldn't even say anything for the first couple of minutes. I decided to clear out the room as soon as possible because my mother-in-law was right. I was still pretty weak and needed time to recover physically. I went to another room because I really did not want to speak to Andy, and seeing him had made my resolve weaken significantly. I did not want this to get even more difficult for me. Then I heard the sound of yelling and realized that Andy had started fighting with his mother. I decided not to intervene and stayed out of it with my daughter. After a few minutes, I started to hear Andy calling out my name, demanding that I speak to him, and at least let him have a look at his daughter because he believed I owe that to him. That rubbed me the wrong way, and I went back outside to see him after I placed my daughter in the crib. I told him that after what he had done, I owed him absolutely nothing. He had made a conscious choice not to be there for me, knowing that I was near my due date. He had chosen not to be there for the birth of his child, leaving me all alone. I was just lucky that my mother-in-law was there for me, so I owed him absolutely nothing. I told him I didn't care at the moment. Our daughter was asleep, and I did not want to wake her up. I wanted him to clear out, and we could discuss this later in the morning. Eventually, he left, but I could see that he had tears in his eyes while leaving. He even tried to talk to me one last time when I backed away from him and told him that I wanted him to leave. We were pretty tired, so we went to sleep. But this morning he showed up again and I finally told him that it was over for me. It had been over the very second that he had left to be with Megan, and there was no way that he could say anything to bring me back. My mother-in-law was in the same room, but I had told her that I wanted to have this discussion with him myself and clear it out once and for all. He then literally started crying and begging, and my mother-in-law had to leave the house with a baby so that our daughter would not have to hear any of that since he was being pretty loud. He kept insisting that he had only gone because Megan had been begging him to claiming that she was on her deathbed. He had spent a week there because she had absolutely no family there and was really lonely. He had spent all of those days trying to comfort her and be there for her. It was all purely platonic, but I wasn't there. So, who knows what was going on? I told him it didn't matter anymore and I wanted him to leave. Then he said that even if I had decided to divorce him, he thought it was too huge of a punishment to take away his chance of being a father. He wanted me to reconsider that, or else he would have to fight for custody. Even then, it would be very unlikely that he would get custody of his daughter, because, firstly, he had not even been there for the birth. So we could use that against him. He was aware of that. On top of that, she was literally just a newborn baby, so she needed me a lot more than she needed her father. He was begging me for one chance because, in spite of everything, he really just wanted a family. Eventually, he did leave. But he told me to think about it. And now I'm not so sure about what to do. This is a huge deal, and it involves people's lives. So I just want to be sure of what I'm doing before I go through with it. So am I the asshole for divorcing my husband and telling him to terminate his parental rights over our daughter because he had skipped the birth of our child to be with his ex, who had claimed to be on her deathbed? Update 1. I have made up my mind and I'm going through with the divorce, but I'm still thinking about whether I want full custody or not. Andy has shown up at the house every single day to apologize to me and literally begged for forgiveness. Every single day I have found it harder to turn him away, but I know that I have to do it. Thankfully, my mother-in-law has been with me every step of the way and is helping me take care of the baby as well. My parents had to fly back home, but my mother-in-law has been kind enough to leave her own home and move in here with me on a more long-term basis because she knows that I'm going to need all the help that I can get. I told her that even if I decide not to give Andy full custody, or even partial, she's still going to have every right to come see her granddaughter anytime she wishes to. I have even asked her what she thinks I should do about the whole custody thing, but she has left that up to me and told me that she knows that I'm going to make the right decision for both of us, just like I made the right decision with the divorce. But I'm still struggling to come to a decision. It's not getting any easier for me because Andy keeps showing up every day, and every time that he comes, I just feel like taking him back and forgiving him for everything. But I know I can't do that, especially not after what I have been through. Megan has always been a sore spot for me, and he didn't even care about that when I was pregnant with his baby. To be honest, I don't even know if they have been in touch with each other, or if there was nothing brewing between them in the past couple of months, because I just can't bring myself to trust anything that he says anymore. So far, his apologies have all been the same. He just keeps repeating whatever he said to me the first time that he came back home after his visit to Megan. Nothing happened. It was all platonic, and he was just there to take care of her because she had claimed that she was on her deathbed, and as her friend just felt like he had to be there every single time. I have to say the same things back to him. It doesn't matter anymore because I have made up my mind and I'm going to leave him now. It's really sad, but that's just how it is. Update 2. Hi. So a few days back I had posted an update saying that I had decided to go through with a divorce, but I still couldn't make up my mind about whether I wanted to file for full custody of my daughter or not. But I think now I know what to do for almost 5 days in a row. Andy had shown up every single day without fail to apologize for his actions and tried to get me to take him back, but after that, he suddenly stopped showing up. I found it strange, but at least I was relieved because I thought that I wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. And I could think with a cool head. But I don't think that's going to be possible anymore. Because after he stopped showing up, other people started texting me and telling me that what I was doing was incredibly wrong in the world, and they had never expected me to act like this. Right afterwards, his friends started bombarding me with texts. And I'm not just talking about the group that he usually hangs out with. I'm talking about every single person who used to go to school or college with him, and I think he set up a template for them to send to me, like this is some petition or something. He could just write emails and messages to the mayor and get them to cancel whatever is going on because he doesn't agree with it. Anyway, at first I was blocking people left and right, but then they started making fake accounts to text me the same things over and over again. There are only so many people you can block. Besides, it's not just that I'm dealing with all this emotional trauma and processing what is happening to me. I'm also still exhausted from giving birth, and I'm trying to be there for my newborn daughter as well. So it's all really tiring, and this is the last thing that I needed. If he really cared about me, he wouldn't be putting me through all of this. Such a delicate stage of my life. It's very obvious that he doesn't care about anybody apart from himself. And so I don't think I have to worry about what I'm going to do about my daughter's custody anymore. I'm going to file for full custody, and that's it. Of course, he still has the papers and can sign his rights away in case he doesn't decide to do that. I've spoken to my lawyer, and this is happening. The messages that I have been receiving so far are not nice. And I know for a fact that he has written the template message and told his friends to send it to me. It really reflects what he believes more than anything else. If this is what he believes about me, I don't think we need to be together at all. The reason I'm so upset is because the messages had this line. We never expected you to be the kind of person who would use their child as a pawn to punish their partner and play mind games like this. Like, is he for real? Does he seriously think that I'm using our daughter to punish him for what he did? I don't think he understands how marriages of children work. Because if he did, he never would have said this. That in particular really hurt me and helped me make up my mind when I showed those messages to my mother-in-law. She was also pretty pissed and said that she was going to contact him and tell him off. But I asked her not to because it was just not worth it. If we tried to confront him about it, he would just deny having any part of it, even though it was very clear that all of his friends were sending me the same kind of messages and he had to be the one behind it. If I'm being frank, I don't even understand why he felt the need to involve his friends in all of this. Because it's not like I'm going to see and read their messages and instantly stop what I'm doing. Their opinions literally do not make a difference to me at all because they are not my friends. I have never been close to any of them, so they can think whatever they want about me and I'm not going to care. I guess he just thought that if an overwhelming number of people started texting me about this, then I would just give in to the pressure or something. But then I'm afraid that he doesn't really know me at all, because I'm not the kind of person who's going to bend to pressure. I did not even change my mind when he himself was showing up every day and begging me for forgiveness because I knew that letting him back into my life was not going to be good for either of us, and definitely not good for our daughter. I might have felt terrible about it, but I still went through with it because I don't bend easily. After being with me for so long, I think he should have an idea of what kind of person I am. But it's very obvious that he doesn't. It's becoming clearer and clearer to me every day that I'm doing the right thing by choosing to leave him. So not just his friends, but even if every single person that he knows starts texting me about this, I'm still not going to change my mind. In fact, this thing that he has done has only helped me feel more strongly about what I'm doing. And I know that as long as the people that I love are on my side, I don't have to worry about any of this. Update 3. Hey, so the legal proceedings for the divorce and the custody agreement are going to commence in a couple of days. Andy has decided not to contest the divorce, but he is demanding at least partial custody of his daughter. We're going to see how that works out. Since I'm open to the idea because I'm not an inherently evil person, but I don't think I want to implement sharing custody until our daughter is at least a couple of years old. So that's what we are going to negotiate. And I'm very happy I've made this decision for myself. Now that it's finally happening, it's hitting me how real all of this is. I thought that I would be scared, but I have never felt more sure of anything in my life. I think some of this might also be because of the message that I received from Megan yesterday, where she told me that she really didn't want to be a homewrecker, but she really needed somebody by her side since her parents wouldn't be there for her. Andy was the only other person that she could think of. She also told me that over the past couple of years, she had tried to contact him several times, and he had always turned her down, saying that I would not approve of it. But she knew that her oldest friend in the world would always be there for her, especially if she's sick, which is why she had contacted him. She was sorry it had stirred up so much trouble in my marriage, but she thinks I should let him retain his individuality instead of being so controlling. So I was right about the fact that he hadn't blocked her at all, and they had actually stayed in touch. Maybe not in the way that I thought, but they did at least speak to each other. The worst part was that she also told me that they had shared a moment when they were together, and they had ended up kissing for a couple of minutes. But after that, Andy had run away from her saying that he couldn't do this, especially while his wife was with his child. She told me that he had not let the kiss last for more than a couple of minutes, and that's how loyal he was to me, as if that was supposed to do anything. It was ridiculous, but yes, I was right about everything. So now getting the divorce and custody on my terms should be a cakewalk since I know these things. I have spoken to my lawyer, and we have also tweaked our petition to demand slightly more of everything, because now I feel like I deserve it since I've been cheated on, clearly. Anyway, I'm feeling very confident about what I'm doing, and I know that things are going to work out.